Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Sarasota nightmare. Today we're talking about the tragic life of Carly Brocchio. 2004 would be a year filled with shock and outrage, especially when you consider the Super Bowl of 2004, where millions of people would tune in to watch the New England Patriots square off with the Carolina Panthers. But surprisingly enough, it was not the fans getting crazy over the football game or getting mad at the opposing team members. The outrage would actually happen during the halftime show, where pop icon Justin Timberlake would forcibly rip off the top of pop icon Janet Jackson. The network tried to stop the incident or protect everyone from seeing what went down, but it was already too late. It happened so fast that everyone literally saw Justin Timberlake ripping off the shirt of Janet Jackson. Millions of people would flood in and report to the network that they were not happy with the incident at all, complaining to the network that they were sending off the wrong message, that not only for the nudity aspect of it, but they wanted people to know that it was completely not okay for an icon like Justin Timberlake to not only be groping a woman without her consent, but forcibly ripping her clothes off, furthering adding to the fact that consent was not a big issue. The network and both Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson would all get immediate backlash, and Justin Timberlake would eventually release a statement of a half-pelted apology and would refer to the incident as a wardrobe malfunction, which would also add to the infamy and the outrage going on during the Super Bowl on February 1st, 2004. The network would eventually implicate very strict rules when it came to halftime shows for many years to come. And after this halftime show, they would only allow certain superstars that were around the 70s rock era to perform during halftime shows. But as angry as the millions and millions of fans were on the Super Bowl of 2004, this would pale in comparison to an incident in Sarasota, Florida on the same night that involved an 11-year-old girl. Carly Jane Brocchio was born on March 16, 1992. She would be born to father Joseph Brocchio and mother Susan Scorfin. The couple would not be married long and would eventually get divorced when Carly was still a little girl. Joseph would remain in Long Island, and Susan would actually attain primary custody of Carly, and she would move to Sarasota, Florida. Susan would eventually get with a man named Stephen Kanzler, and they would eventually have a son. Even though Joseph and Susan lived states away, they would still make an effort so that Carly could have a relationship with both her mother and father. During the school, Carly would attend school with her mother in Sarasota, Florida, and during the holidays and for a couple weeks on the summer, Carly would spend time with her father in Long Island. Her father would recall that Carly enjoyed spending time not only with him, but her aunts as well, and would always have a good time when she was in Long Island. The same can actually be said when Carly was living at home with her mother and stepfather. She would say that Carly enjoyed spending time with her mother and doing things that mothers and daughters normally love to do, and she had a good relationship with her stepfather as well, and also had a very good relationship with her younger brother. People would recall and say that Carly was always a very positive person, and would also say that she had a very caring heart and just had a deep love for people. They would also say that Carly would never leave anywhere without putting a smile on her face. On the Saturday of January 31st, 2004, the night before the Super Bowl Sunday, Carly would walk up to Susan and tell her that she wanted to stay the night at a friend's house named Danielle, and would say that she wanted to stay the night and spend the day with her and come back home before watching the football game. And her mother would say it was okay, and they would take her over to Danielle's house, where they would spend a girls' night out together. The night out would just be a regular sleepover like most girls' sleepovers would be. Danielle and Carly would spend most of the night painting each other's nails, playing with each other's hair, watching movies, eating pizza, and gossiping about fellow classmates at their school. They would also spend most of the night with Danielle's mother, Connie, till they would eventually fall asleep. The following day, on February 1st, 2004, Danielle and Carly would spend most of the afternoon with Connie, sitting around watching TV and talking. Eventually, it was getting to the point where it was getting around 6 p.m. and Carly had realized that it was getting fairly late, and she had promised her parents that she would be home at a certain time before the game. She would get up and tell both Danielle and Connie that she wanted to go walk home to watch the Super Bowl game. Connie and Danielle, it has been speculated, had assumed that Carly wanted to stay to watch the Super Bowl with them. And immediately when Carly got up to walk home, Connie was completely against it and would say that we really don't feel comfortable with you walking home, considering the fact that you're just an 11-year-old girl. And Carly would even try to calm Connie down and say that it was roughly a mile home and that she would be home within 17 minutes and it was not a big problem. And after Carly would walk out of the house, Connie would waste no time calling Susan. And she would tell Susan that Carly had decided to walk home by herself against her better judgment. And this would make Susan very visibly upset because she did not feel comfortable with her 11-year-old daughter walking by herself, even though it was only a mile down the road. After getting off the phone, Susan would turn to Stephen and ask him to get in the vehicle and go look for Carly on B Street, which is roughly a halfway point between Danielle's house and their house. Stephen would waste no time going down to go pick up their daughter, and when he got there, he was very puzzled. Carly did not seem to be anywhere near on B Street. Stephen would actually park fairly close to this car wash that resided on B Street, and he would tell Susan that Carly was nowhere in sight. And when Stephen had told Susan that she was nowhere in sight, Susan became very visibly concerned. And it is at this point she got off the phone with Stephen and began calling all of her classmates, wanting to know where Carly was. Stephen would drive all throughout B Road and various other roads looking for Carly, but he could not find her anywhere in sight. The only thing that he had noticed was there was this red pickup truck that seemed to be anywhere he was and was driving very slow, and Stephen thought it was very, very odd. Stephen would also go on a mountain road or a back road that was very near the area where they lived at to look for Carly. But the only thing that he would find is the same strange red pickup truck. Stephen would be driving on the way back home where he would find the same red truck at Danielle and Connie's house. It is at this point that Stephen thought this was very strange. It is at this point that Susan was very petrified, with good reason. Stephen would try to calm Susan down by trying to tell her that maybe she had stopped at a friend's house on the way home. But Susan would retort and disclaim this and say that she had already called all of Carly's friends and none of them knew where she was. It is at this time that a very frantic Susan would then dial 911 to report to the police that her 11-year-old daughter was missing. If you ever take the time to listen to this 911 call, you can literally hear the desperation, despair, and fear in Susan's voice. Unlike adults, when a missing person is reported, police typically wait 24 hours. But with children, police react with a little bit more urgency, as they know that with most missing children cases, every last second is crucial. So the police would waste no time arriving to the home of Stephen and Susan. It is around this time that the police began asking Susan and Stephen about what had happened to Carly, and they would tell them the story about how their daughter had just gone missing. After they would tell them the story, the police would waste no time putting a bolo out for Carly Bruscia, or be on the lookout for. It is at this time that they also created missing persons posters and began handing them out. But they were not prepared for what they saw next.